Confirm your passcode.
ERP. What I'm going to plan on doing is putting you all on mute, so if somebody has dogs barking or whatever, we don't have to listen to that. But if you have questions, enter them through the chat window, and I'll leave enough time at the end to open the mic back up and answer some more questions as well. So it sounds like everybody's up and running. I'll go to mute now.
All guests have been muted.
So first of all, let me introduce myself. My name is George Pasty. I've been at Verdantis for over 4 years. I've been in this space for over 15. So if it has to do with master data management, and in particular around manufacturing and design and supplier, I've got some number of years under my belt. And I'm fairly technical by nature as an engineer from schooling, and I've spent a lot of time in the supply chain, spend management, CAD/CAM spaces. So that's a little bit about me. I'm happy for anybody to reach out to me for questions. You can either reach out to me at george.pasty@verdantis.com, or you can also try info@verdantis if you want to admit it to our normal response channels. So from the agenda perspective, what we're really here to do is we're really here to, why would you include material master data quality improvement in ERP plans and processes, and why do you do it on an ongoing basis? Then we're going to talk about examples, and I've got a couple of particular examples that talk about value as well that I'll run through at the end. That's an actual customer case study. So that's the agenda, and so let's get to it. And just for planning purposes, I'm planning on going about 20, 25 minutes, maybe 30, and that'll give us plenty of time for questions at the end. So from a planning perspective, in realizing the opportunities, this is the why you would do it. Number one reason a lot of our clients choose is in controlling costs. We're told routinely that 10% of an ERP upgrade or consolidation, their cost, that 10% of that goes to master data management. And of that 10%, 4% goes to materials. And so that's a fairly small percentage of a big number, but it's still a big number. And you want to be able to reduce the risks around that. Secondly, is the process integration. Most of my clients have seen growth through acquisition, or they've had a legacy of a decentralization, or their business units had different processes, and that all led to data silos. So what we're seeing in the marketplace is people are anxious to get their data consistent across the organization, and support that across the different BUs and geographically, internationally as well. So what we're talking about there is really enterprise visibility through integration. And lastly on this slide, managing data better. This is really turning into a competitive advantage, whereas you have at your fingertips consolidated granular view of your data to provide a myriad of different business benefits, and get you out of the old model where you'd spend 80% of your time trying to rationalize data and come up with an absolute version of the truth. This leads to a much more agile business with an enterprise view that is process enabled. So that gets you away from that spending 80% of your time trying to rationalize and reconcile the data so you can do the analytics on it. So, ERP is only as good as the data that goes in it. We've all heard the analogy of you wouldn't put diesel in your new Ferrari, and that's an apt analogy. It's one of the most expensive programs a company will undertake. and it's an ongoing journey. Most companies, as they mature through their latest implementation of ERP, they're back at it 5, 7, 10 years down the road. So, what we want to do is we want to help you implement processes that'll make sure that not only do you realize the most benefit out of your current implementation, but you've set a platform foundation such that each next subsequent one will be much easier. So what are the areas that we look at in terms of that, that are significant? Number one is getting the data standardized, normalized, attributed, rationalized, and enriched in the material domain. It's typically a pretty arduous process, and we'll talk more about the details in that later in the presentation. And one of the reasons it is arduous is because you're trying to bring together multiple ERPs, that have different taxonomies, that have different naming descriptions into a standardized view that you can load into your new system. And data integration is a critical part of that, right? I mean, not only up front, but ongoing. You can have multiple legacy systems. Not everybody's going to a single instance of ERP. So how do I manage an enterprise view of my data when I have several item masters distributed across my organization? So that's where the data governance comes in. The data governance around managing the data over a large, geographically dispersed, potentially multilingual organization comes in with either the ERP-based governance solution, or we have one that's specific to materials and services that many of our clients have opted to bolt across their ERPs to make sure that they can still manage that single version of the truth while supporting multiple BUs on multiple systems. So why should it be up in front of your blueprint? A lot of people look at the ERP data cleansing piece as something downstream, more of an implementation task. But what we found is that during implementation, if it's not part of the blueprint setting the project up for the downstream requirements, that you're going to get surprises. And surprises equal risk and they equal cost. So by having it up front in the blueprint, you're really protecting yourself for downstream costs and risks. And from a post-ERP implementation perspective, this is really going to help you to preserve and keep those ongoing savings and not let your data deteriorate back to where it was before you needed to clean it up. So the clean data, and this is our area of expertise. We've developed automated tools to help this process along, both from the get it clean and keep it clean perspective. And, it's one of the most impacts that we see in the deployment cycle. So during ERPs, oftentimes it's underestimated, it's not in the blueprint, and it comes down to we'll do it after we go live. And oftentimes that doesn't happen, and now you've got the historical toxic data into your new ERP system. So, I mean, it's a very large undertaking, especially for these geo-diverse and or multi-legacy system companies that are dealing with multiple languages. What we see for success is that the data needs to hit the right data of quality, right? And the right data of quality is where it drives value at the most economic price point. And it's got to be complete and accurate. So at the end of the day, it needs to be correct. Accurate, complete, and correct. Foundational for decision making, lowering risk, faster user adoption, and lowers the ERP implementation and cost. Important to migrate the right data, standardized, normalized, and attributed, and bring it together in the ERP implementation consolidation. When migrating many ERPs, challenges include, among others, multiple hierarchies, multiple coding schemes, multiple languages, multiple part numbering types, That's, excuse me for a moment. I unmuted the line so that I can get feedback. I am getting messages that my slides are not advancing. Is that true? I'll try it again. Do you see that change in slides? Anybody see that now? I apologize for the technical difficulty. We should be back with you in just a moment. Okay, it seems like whatever that temporary network glitch is over now, and that you can now see my slides. And we were talking about the cleansing of data and how complex it is. So it's important when migrating many ERPs. You'll have these multiple codings, languages, part numbers, et cetera. The ERPs typically have rudimentary data quality tools, especially for materials, usually a keyword-based text field that doesn't do much to provide governance. So this is where the third party dedicated to this type of operation can provide the quality and reduce your risk and provide timely, correct data on time and quicker. So that's just something to consider as you're looking at your data projects or your ERPs. So in terms of redundancy, with easy to find, searchable, and compare data, the people at the edge of your organization, the people who are requesting new materials, the maintenance engineers, the crib managers, perhaps it's a sourcing person looking for a comparable part. This will drive the incidence of redundant material requests down because people will be able to search, find, and compare. And in doing so, you will drive more spend on contract, and that's been a big value bucket for many of our customers. With regard to duplication, the enterprise granular view of all your materials against the same classification structure and I'm sorry, I'm getting another comment. I'm blocking the screen. Guess I can try resharing it. Do I need to reshare again? Yeah. Okay, apparently it's okay now. So we're talking about eliminating inventory and rationalizing inventory. You know, we often see that clients, especially those that have gone through either acquisitions or through very poor data governance of their descriptions in the past, will find that they have substantial duplication. Typically, we see that in the 10 to 20% range, but I've actually had a client that was up to 40%, largely because they were acquiring like companies. And so there's some real value to be had in inventory rationalization. In terms of ongoing savings, you know, this is the keeping it clean and ongoing processes to continue to deliver that value. So a lot of these values are enabled year over year. So in terms of the MDM lifecycle in your ERP implementation, the lifecycle thereof, you know, this is again where MDM is a journey. It's not a destination. By institutionalizing MDM, you can avoid the scenario where you clean your data for the implementation but do not get it governed. And going forward, our clients tell us that if they're not governing their data, it's degrading it between 15 and 20% a year, which means 2 or 3 years later, you find yourself in the same place you were at that time you cleansed your data originally. So it's critical that you institutionalize this so that you can continue to realize those gains as you go forward. So just in terms of a little bit about the numbers, Aberdeen Research did some studies about implementing ERP with and without MDM, and you can see there's some significant gains there across things like improvement in accuracy. And I can tell you from my own experience that I've had clients that don't know the demographics of their MRO spares, consumables, capital spares, and insurance spares because they don't have a granular view of them. And by our going in and giving them a granular view, they can greatly increase their accuracy, their inventory. Now, I think 91% is a little high based on my experience, but you know, they probably studied more people than I have. Continuing on with that study, in terms of an operational view, you know, if you can increase schedule compliance, you can change things like your ERP implementation operational costs by several points. That several points is a big number. So it really does add up. And that's where our clients are really seeing the value of cleansing the data. So let's talk a little bit about some examples. Here is a client that was a very large water scale treatment client. I'll give you a hint, they're out of Chicago. And one of the ways we see our clients implement ERP from a data cleansing perspective is the Big Bang. So they'll take all their data at once, and then they'll standardize, normalize, and attribute it, rationalize. In this case, this client did it with us. It was a pretty good-sized project. It was 1.3 million active materials, a wide range of different historical legacy business systems. Came to us in 23 different languages. Had no existing corporate categorization for material or part classification. So they were really starting from scratch, and obviously knew they had a lot of duplicates in their systems. They had a lot of acquisition and lax governance in the past, so they saw opportunity, and they wanted to reach that opportunity up front. They were embarking on about a 5-year SAP implementation, and as opposed to going region by region on the data scrubbing, they said, hey, if we can get visibility into this up front and maintain it, that's going to deliver a lot of value, and they, in fact, did do that, delivered a lot of value, and actually helped pay for their ERP implementation through some of the value they got. But they realized that they had to govern that data going forward, and they had multiple ERPs, so they also decided to go with our integrity data governance tool, which we bolted on top of their SAPs, and for 5 years, that's what they used to govern their data. And then at the end of 5 years, they were ready to deploy master data governance. And so we gave them an export file of all the class structures, attributes, the part descriptions, and they loaded that into MDG. And one of the side benefits they told us was that, you know, we would have had to create a lot of that stuff in MDG. But by being able to take that out of your system and load it in, it saved us from having to define a lot of rules and specification templates and taxonomies. And so it's kind of a side bonus in value that we saw there. This is more of a hard dollar look at it. This is a client who was trying to impact their P&L. $8 billion steel manufacturer. They turned about $1 billion a year, and they held about $400 million. So they had pretty good MRO spend. Their initial, before they started the project, unique material item count in their existing legacy systems was 400,000 items. So just initially out of the box, we were able to identify 60,000 duplicates that were, in fact, real duplicates. You know, somebody had fudged a part number here or a description there, but by the time we harmonized all that data, we were able to show them that they were, in fact, the same part. From a raw count improvement, that's 15% reduction in total SKUs, not bad out of the box, and a 10% identification of duplicate assets. So what does this mean and how they justified the system? What this means is first they looked at the annual inventory carrying costs. Their numbers were 4.4% a year. You know, I've seen much higher, I've seen much lower. It comes down to the company. Of the $400 million in inventory that they carried, 10% was duplicate, which got burnt down. So they were no longer carrying $400 million in duplicate inventory times their cost of carrying it. It turned out to a $1.76 million a year savings, which is annual. So that's a gift that keeps on giving. From a cost reduction on aggregation of demand, you know, across that 15% of similar assets, they were able to determine that represented about $150 million in addressable spend, and their cost through strategic sourcing of buying on contract versus not on contract was roughly 12%, whereas, you know, Gartner and people like that will tell you it's 18%. But at any rate, the numbers that they came up with for the cost of reduction by getting more spend, you know, through strategic sourcing and aggregated from their supply base was another $18 million. Now, from a Mavic spend perspective, you know, they're turning $1 billion. 80% of it was covered by contract. So they had $800 million they were buying every year, or they have every year that was potentially to be bought off a contract. They recognized from their studies that they had about a 40% Maverick spend that went down to 25% through clean descriptions that people could now find things, right? Search, find, compare. So that's a 15% gain in compliance, which is an additional $120 million in contracted spending, and the average cost of that improvement was 16.5% by their calculations for contract versus off contract, and that led to an additional $19 million in savings. So in their case, for their environment and with their metrics, across these three value buckets, they were able to find a substantial ROI to go forward with this project. A little bit about Verdantis. I've been talking a lot about the space. Our products and service offerings have been in the market over 12 years. We really started our business out of doing turnkey data services where people send us the data and we send it back to them under an SLA in a structured format of their choice. About 4 years ago, a couple of companies that were a little more sophisticated in the master data space saw the tool and said, will you license that to us? We would love to clean our own data through it. They recognized the force multiplication capabilities of our automated technology. So we've now been selling that as a SME-based hosted platform that our clients can contract with us and do batch in, batch out data scrubbing. We're being told that that's about a 10x force multiplier on their catalog teams. So that means fewer people and faster time to higher quality. We've run 100 million materials through our tool so far, and our technology is a closed-loop self-learning environment. So it comes pre-configured with a lot of the information that a rules-based ETL merge and match type approach to cleaning your data would make you go back in and correct. So what that means is we've already got 52,000 units to value measure pairs already identified in the system. We've got 3,700 specification templates already built out that are highly configurable to our clients' needs. We've got 25,000 manufacturers that we've seen every derivation that we think you can find and how they're spelled. So we can normalize that right out of the box. But on top of that, we've designed this tool to be highly configurable and complementary to ERP and asset management softwares. So we've been in several scenarios where we've spanned, up to 18 different varieties of ERP to keep everything in sync at the system of record level. And we do that through our integrity product. That's our keep it clean, and we get it clean through harmonize. And just to summarize, harmonize, we can approach in two ways. One, turnkey, you send us the data, we clean it. And secondly, from a self-service model, where we license you the software and you batch in, batch out, clean it yourself. Just to make a couple of additional notes, I talked a little bit about the scalability of our software. We count as one of our very successful clients, a company by the name of Saudi Aramco. I think they're the second largest company in the world. They're using my little small company's technology to onboard 40,000 suppliers and scrub 2 million materials, and then to also validate it through integrity on an ongoing basis. So our technology scales very well, and at this point in time, we're in about 15th revision, and it's fairly bulletproof. So that's about all I had to say on this at this point. That's just an introduction. I'd be happy to take any questions at this point. Okay, I see one coming in on WebEx. We might opt for a new ERP solution in the near future. Should we implement MDM now or once the new system is in place? Well, we think that the data part of it is institutionalized into the implementation of ERP. So you can, like we've just reviewed, I think you should be building it into your blueprint and making plans to have that hit the implementation process prematurely, because there'll always be some additional test and load. So that would be my recommendation there. Okay, I've got another one. With regulatory environment in flux and more regulations anticipated in the coming years, is it advisable to go for such investment as MDM? Well, regulations often require compliance. Being able to have heightened data quality, reliability, and auditability of your materials, I think helps protect you against these regulations, especially if, in the environmental space. So I would say that there's value to be had there in being able to better protect yourself against some of these regulations. Okay, just a minute. Okay. I just got another one in. It's about pressure for cutting costs. In such a scenario, how can I make a case for a new software to my management? Well, it's servers and a software, right? The software is the governance piece of it. When I'm asked by senior directors in IT and maybe even a CIO that says, hey, I just spent whatever it is, $10, $15 million implementing ERP, the first question I ask them is did they standardize their data? And one of the biggest areas you can get out of your new ERP system is to have accurate data to promote that inventory reduction programs, the on-spend contract, the reduction, the increase of on-contract spend. It's something that a lot of companies haven't done as well as they can. And if they don't have the data in the system that they just spend a lot of money on, I think that that's an area that they should seek value. I got another one here. Do you have mandatory repository and linking with the product master? Product master, is that, I assume that's, I'll answer that second two ways. One, from an attribute perspective, we link with both product and item masters. I think of that as direct and indirect. So what we do is, through our integrity governance tool, we integrate through a middleware layer to your application of choice. From a harmonized, get it clean perspective, most of our clients don't need that integration level. Some of them have. Saudi has done it to auto-load from their suppliers data into their e-procure system. So it is done, but most of our clients use Harmonize as a batch in, batch out application. But certainly for integrity, we've done it with several dozen different types of systems. And again, it becomes a system of record. So material creation and approval is done in integrity through its workflows, and then that is sent to new material requests in, say, SAP through the integration. That's internet real-time integration. Another question, can you talk a little more about licensing your cleansing software? What are the work steps? Okay, sure. When we have clients who want to do it themselves, what we do is we set up an annual license. We base the pricing on how many parts they want to run through it, and then there's a one-time provisioning and training charge. So it's contingent on the number of materials you want to run through it. We do have a minimum of, I think it's 50,000, 100,000. So that's something to consider. But the licensing model is done annually. We do an audit adjustment at the end of the year. So if you didn't do the 100,000 that you thought you were going to do, we would adjust that down. Some of our clients, like AEP, they signed up a multi-year agreement because they had an environment where they're continually onboarding data from new suppliers. So there was an initial big surge to load data, and then they had a reduced license to continue loading data going forward. And that's similar to what Saudi did as well. So in terms of the work steps, I'll frame that in terms of how our tool works. Our tool works by first classifying the data to identify what it is. Once you've identified what this thing is, we have specification templates that define what this is. And then we have a next step, which uses our automatic attribute extraction technology called AutoSpec. And AutoSpec is an AI-based learn-by-example engine that will rip apart the legacy descriptions or descriptions from your suppliers and seek to populate that into the specification templates that define that material. Once we've done that, we then run through the normalization process. So we split out all the values. That makes it very easy for us to, if you want double tick mark instead of IN for all your units of measure, that's a mouse click. So it's got the knowledge of touch one, impact many, because that's where we use, comparative and fuzzy logic matching along with proximity to be able to determine like items that if you make an edit to one, you can make an edit to one or thousands, depending on how you select what you want to direct your change towards. After that, if there's gaps in the data, we have a tool called AutoCrawl, which takes valid manufacturer part names and supplier part names and numbers, and it will spider crawl the web looking for those materials, and then it will return the results. About 80–85% automated process. There still has to be a QA level at the end to make sure you select the right one you want put in there, and also to see if there's any conflicts between the data you have in your system and what you just got from the manufacturer. And in most cases, our clients will go with the manufacturer data. From that point in time, if this is to support an ERP, which it usually is, we've got a very robust description generator, which then allows you to generate descriptions. Those descriptions can be configured for any length. So if you have an SAP system and you need the 40-character length restriction, that's no problem. Those attributes and characteristics can be reordered, renamed, reprefixed, resuffixed, however you see fit. And it does work with multiple languages. So if you have a multiple language requirement, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. That's our integrity product. Our harmonized tool ends with English. Do we have any other questions here? I think we're running out of time. I do see one more. I'll try to answer it quickly. We got a company to implement a manual data cleansing project in our company almost 5 years back, but saw little gains from it. How does Verdantis position itself? I don't know who it was and what they did. I can just tell you how we're different because we're not manual, we're automated, and I think that makes a big difference in terms of quality. I know some of the manual shops out there, they'll use multiple body shops to do the data, and they don't always work within the same taxonomies, commodity coding systems, and what you get back is a little bit of a mishmash of unstandardized data. It's better than it was, but it's still not where it should be. So I think that's one differentiator I'd say right there. The other thing I'd say is that would make it very difficult to govern your data if it's not of a high quality. We routinely guarantee a 95% SLA, or excuse me, a 90% SLA out of our automated processes. And it's not hard to get there because of the way the tool works. And again, I'd be happy to show anybody a demonstration of it if they're interested. All you got to do is reach out. Well, I think that's it from the questions, and I know we're out of time, I don't want to keep anybody longer. Certainly, if you have any more, please do reach out, george.pasty@verdantis.com, or you can reach out to info@verdantis.com. My phone number is 978-499-7600. Happy to take your call. Again, that's 978-499-7600. I want to thank you all for your time very much. I hope to hear from you, and I hope you all have a great day. Thank you so much.